Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to FPCI-Huawei Digital Conference. We are entering our third and final session of today's conference titled Integrating Green Economy and Digital Transition in Southeast Asia, Implications on Individuals, Communities, and Businesses. This session will be moderated by Ms. Dayu Nirma Amurwanti, Faculty Member of International Relations Department of BINUS University, Indonesia. Without further ado, I'll give the floor to Ms. Dayu.
Thank you. So again, welcome to session 3 of FPCI Huawei Digital Conference 2021 with a topic of integrating green economy and digital transition in Southeast Asia, implications to individuals, communities, and businesses. Let me thank Huawei and FPCI for inviting me as a moderator today. My name is Dayu. I'm a faculty member of Bina Nusantara University, teaching international relations. Now, as an introduction to the topic, COVID-19 pandemic is not yet over. When we thought that it's going to be over, we heard that Omicron has landed in our neighboring country, Malaysia. So the question that we all have is there an end in sight? While there are a few things that we learned from the pandemic, well, perhaps we may expect that things are not going to be normalized in the immediate future. There are things that we learn from COVID-19 pandemic and what we see in Southeast Asia. We see that digital technology has been an important lifeline. Businesses, communities, individuals that managed to go digital in time managed to adapt well in this pandemic. We also see that it is important for Southeast Asian economies to grow inclusively because COVID-19 pandemic has also increased inequality, not only from the income divide, but other aspects of inequality. We also believe that from the COVID-19 pandemic, we learned that it is important for Southeast Asian economies to grow greener. That pandemic is perhaps one of the consequences of we are failing to take care of this earth, and there are ramifications or implications moving forward. And with that topic, integrating green economy and digital transition and the importance or implications to individuals, communities, and businesses, we have a list of amazing speakers with us. Let me greet and welcome them. First, we have Dr. Mego Pinandito. Good afternoon, sir. The Deputy for Research and Innovation Utilization at National Research and Innovation Agency, Indonesia. The second panelist, we have Mr. Tengku Farith Rithauddeen. Good afternoon, sir. He is the Group Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of SKALI from Malaysia. And third panelist, we have Mr. Nguyen and Duong. He is the director for the Department of General Economic Issues and Integration Studies of Central Institute for Economic Management, Vietnam. Good afternoon, sir. And we also have with us Mr. David Liu, the President of Strategy Marketing Department, Huawei Asia Pacific Region. Welcome, sir. Let me read out the CV of our panelists before we begin with the moderated Q&A to kickstart the discussion. Dr. Mego Pinandito is the Acting Deputy for Research and Innovation Utilization at Indonesian National Research and Innovation Agency. Previously, he was the General Secretary for the agency and the ministry. And previously, he was also the Deputy of Scientific Services at Indonesian Institute of Sciences, or LIPI. And he's an expert at multiple topics such as database systems and design, remote sensing, perhaps if we talk about forest and land use, remote sensing is important, environmental measurement, and meteorology. He earned his bachelor and master's degree in engineering at Ehime University in Japan and his PhD degree at Shinshu University, Japan. So the second speaker is Mr. Tengku Farith Rithauddeen. He's the Group CEO and co-founder of SKALI Malaysia. He has won multiple awards, and as I read out his CV, perhaps we may take like an hour to read out his accomplishments. From 2002, he was 100 Global Leaders for Tomorrow, awarded by the World Economic Forum. 2004, he was awarded Young Entrepreneur Award by Malaysia Chamber of Commerce. 2006, Eisenhower Fellowship. 2008, Outstanding Entrepreneur. 2012, one of the top 10 inspiring techpreneur. He was previously working for CIMB, and his background spans from corporate finance, corporate restructuring, capital markets, and others. He was also working at Road Builders Holdings, perhaps, so perhaps we can also explore his ideas on digital infrastructure, and it currently sits on various boards. The third speaker is Mr. Nguyen and Duong. He is the director for General Economic Issues and Integration Studies of Central Institute for Economic Management in Vietnam, which is a think tank based in Vietnam. He joined CIEM in 2004, and he has conducted various research and policy recommendations on macroeconomic policies, economic integration, digital trade, green growth, and others. He is drafting a plan to promote circular economy in Vietnam. He is also actively involved in APEC and ASEAN and work related to the two. He represents CIEM at ASEAN Plus 6 Regional Institute Network. He earned his bachelor and master's degree of economics at Australia National University. And we have also Mr. David Liu. He is the president for strategy marketing at Huawei Asia Pacific. He has more than 15 years of experience at ICT industry globally. Previously, he was the president for marketing and solutions sales for VEON Global Account Huawei in Amsterdam. And he earned his master and bachelor's degree in system engineering at Xi'an Jiaotong University in China. So with that impressive CVs, let's go to the discussion today. So let me begin with Bapa Dr. Mego Pinandito. So good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
So coming from Indonesia, we are a country that is said to have a demographic dividend bonus. We're also a country that is rich in natural resources. So how do you think Indonesia should take advantage of the two, and what do you think is the role of technology in tapping all this wonderful potential?
Yes, thank you for the moderators. Before I answer this question, I'd like to deliver my thanks to Huawei, who are always have some collaboration with us and also inviting us to join these wonderful opportunities. Okay, regarding to the Indonesia, which is as known as the rich country with the natural resources, I think human well-being to sustain the lives depend on the ability of the nature to provide some basic resource. I think control of the clean waters, the clean air, and also the good climate for supporting the lives, and also with the fertile and the productive homeland, rivers, and also seas for the good food source. We can see many good food source from in the land. I think it is very important regarding to the mineral and also energy sources to boost the economy. So that the green economy approach can be the alternative to reduce the poverty, to social inclusion, and also the environmental sustainability and economic growth. And I think to achieve this situation, these conditions, the technology is a very important key. For example, to looking for the innovation to the support to the sustainable economy, inclusive and equitable growth, social, economic, and also environmental resilience. That is including the healthy and productive ecosystem and reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, since we know that this is also the important issue and the global issues. And the green growth is very important for Indonesia as the rich countries in the natural resources, so that responsible use of the natural capitals, preventions, and also reduction of the pollutions, the creating of the opportunity for the improvement of the overall social welfare are very important. It includes the ultimate enable Indonesia to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. I think for this reason, we know that the technology, the scientific and technology is the key so that the economic growth can be continued, can be sustained to run by utilization of the natural resources in the effective and efficient ways, and also by developing many technologies which are being what we call the new method to continuing the future in accordance with the green growth order. I think there is the question that why we have to look at the technology, the role of the technology, and how important it is for Indonesia as the rich country. Thank you.
For resilience. Let me go to Mr. Tengku Farith Rithauddeen. Considering the importance of green growth and technology as a techpreneur yourself, do you think that ASEAN member states have provided conducive environment for techpreneurs like yourself? And is there any incentive to promote green technology? I think you're still muted.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I can only speak for Malaysia, and there's a lot of incentives in my country with green technology, also for digital companies like us to promote digital transformation among the SMEs and local companies. However, I feel that there's a lot of room to be made, a lot of improvement to be done to ensure cross-border activities, to leverage on each other ASEAN countries' strengths, to actually be more inclusive among the ASEAN countries itself, to ensure the green economy and digital transformation or digital technologies are adopted among the SMEs. I think we need to do a lot more than that. Even before the pandemic, I feel that operating within the ASEAN countries was much more difficult than going to the United States or Europe or entering markets in the Middle East. And we still have this intrinsic, official, unofficial barriers to entry. And the innovation lifeline for both green technology and digital technology is really the startups, and that's where the innovation comes from. And we have to ensure that there's a free flow of ideas and innovation where entrepreneurs, like small entrepreneurs, the startups, a 2-3-man company or 2-3-woman company can actually go to Indonesia, or Indonesian companies can come to Malaysia and Singapore and Myanmar and Brunei and so on, and really realize and capture the strengths of each other countries and their resources. And these resources are actually the people. And during the pandemic, it was very important that we should be able to actually ride on the strengths and capability of the relevant skills of each country. And this will allow better income distribution among the ASEAN countries itself.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Nguyen. The previous speakers also discuss the importance of promoting innovation. So what about Vietnam? What is the status of digital economy in Vietnam? And do you think that there are challenges or opportunities that you can share with us with regards to the situation in Vietnam?
Yeah, I think thank you for the opportunities to speak here today. And I think in terms of the digital technology, Vietnam has been trying to catch up with countries in the regions, and including with ASEAN member states. And I think domestically, we even before the COVID pandemic, we have set out the strategies to promote digital economy. But I think the most prevalent forms of digital economies in before 2020 were with the e-commerce. And so at that time, when we talk about digital economy, the main focus at that time was trade. And Vietnam is very open to trade, and so e-commerce was important. But starting from 2020, when the supply chain was disrupted and when we had to suffer from social distancing measures and so the firms and the government were making huge effort in terms of promoting the digital economy. So we start to have more meaningful approach to the use of technology, especially the big data and big data, artificial intelligence, and 5G internet, in order to support the decision making. And especially the purpose for that one, it was very tied to the prevention of the COVID-19, because at that time the technologies, the 5G network, were also used to support the tracking and tracing of the COVID cases. So we make use of that in the areas that was meant to be relevant to the COVID preventions. And from that, we start to build up the examples, and we proliferate it to the other areas of economic areas. So the firm, I think in early 2020, the firms were also reluctant, had some sort of like mixed feeling toward digital technology. On the one hand, they believe that digital technology is important, but on the other hand, some of them tend to think that the COVID cases would be over very soon, and so they will have the chance to get back to the old way of doing business. But for now, I think the COVID cases have continued for long, and so the firms recognize that it's inevitable for them to promote digital transformations. And with that, I think the investment and the attitudes are being more progressive at this stage. So I think that's a good sign. Of course, we're still having a lot of thing to do in the years ahead, but at least I think the momentum is gathering up. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me now go to Mr. David Liu. Hello, sir. So in ASEAN member states, as you have heard from the Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnamese experience, that communities, individuals, and businesses are forced to go digital. But at the same time, as days, months progress, and we all feel the need not only to go digital, but also to pay more attention to environment and a greener way of developing. So how does Huawei see this as a private company that is working to promote digitization and promote the role of technology?
Okay, so thank you. So even according to the ASEAN the Development Bank forecast, for the ASEAN will be that the world's fourth largest economy by 2030. So the digital economy has huge potential in ASEAN region. So, and also, as we know, ASEAN already has released its digital master plan 2025, right? One of this goal is to increase the quality and the coverage of the both fixed and mobile broadband. So these plans aim to make the region a leading digital community. So, and also, as we know, many countries, such as Singapore, Indonesia, and Thailand, right, in ASEAN, has also released the national digitalization strategy. So, and also, this is also almost accepted by everyone, right? Digital infrastructure has a huge impact on those countries' digital economy. So, as researched, for example, so in the past decades, yes, every 10% increase in the fixed broadband penetration will increase GDP by 0.8% to 2.3%. Even every 10% increase in mobile broadband penetration will increase the GDP, yes, about that 1.5 to 2.8%. So in the future, we know that 5G, cloud, AI, will continue to contribute to the GDP growth. So all this shows digital infrastructure is the cornerstones of the development of the digital economy. So connectivity and also cloud are the foundation of the digital economy. So as Huawei, right? So we already invest in ASEAN about more than 20 years. So I mean, same in the past 2 decades, Huawei already support approx, right? So 500 million people in ASEAN by providing ICT, connectivity, cloud, and AI technology and solutions to reduce the digital divide and promote industry digitalization. But however, right, there is still unbalanced development for ASEAN, especially for these developing countries. So Huawei believes that no one should be left behind the digital world. So that's why, so we focus for ASEAN. One is, so for still continue to investment in ICT infrastructure and innovation. So every year, Huawei invests over 10% of our revenue into the R&D and delivers value to the industry and the society through that innovation. And we are willing to collaborate more to bridge that digital divide and provide ubiquitous connectivity and pervasive intelligence to the ASEAN region. So, and also for other digital inclusive, so to help more other people and organizations, right, to benefit from digital technology and to leave no one behind in the digital world. So Huawei, we launched our digital inclusive initiatives and action plan, Tech for All, so that we believe everyone has a right to have a high quality education, including the digital skills required in today's world. So that's why. So we work with our global partners, so like UN, ESO, NGO, and the governments, right? Let's work together to bridge the digital divides. And also for last, and also Dayu also mentioned, right? So for rather green and sustainable development is the most important. So Huawei, in 2021, we also invest almost $600 million to set up a digital power company, because globally, we need a green industrial revolution, right, with the goal of carbon neutrality. So same, I think, in our region, like Singapore, Indonesia, and also for Thailand, already set up the target for the carbon neutrality. So that's why, so Huawei, right, we combine our digital and electronic technologies to develop innovative digital energy service to use energy as effectively as possible, right? So this is, we want to cooperate with the ASEAN, all other governments, right, to minimize the carbon footprint of the ICT infrastructure. And also, as the digital economy grows, we must need is a green revolution, because the carbon emitting leading countries may directly to constrain the developing countries, right, to accelerate the emission reduction by setting up some market barriers. So, thank you, Dayu.
Thank you. Those are very interesting sharing from Huawei, that Huawei has invested significantly in ASEAN, not only to bridge connectivity between countries, but also to promote digital inclusion as well as to accelerate green revolution in the industry, and also to help countries or support countries in achieving their carbon neutrality targets. And let me go to Dr. Mego Pinandito, since we left off with the importance of having national strategies, because with technology we can also promote increase in national income, the increase in GDP. Mr. David Liu has alluded to that better digital infrastructure can also reduce poverty in some communities. So what do you think are the roles of the government, and can you share the Indonesian government strategy in promoting green technology or transforming into green development in Indonesia?
Yes, thank you. The Indonesian government, the Republic of Indonesia, government strongly encourage the implementation of the digital transformation for the green development in Indonesia. There are many various green development programs supported by the digital system has been carried out. Yeah, I think various, for example, the electronic-based government services and so on, and also that is provided less the natural resources significantly. And again, the governments plays the important role in the promoting the digital transformation as the leverage of the other economic sectors. There is many sectors related to the digital transformation now, and naturally the digital transformation will be the next logical steps for Indonesia to become the developed countries, at least the 2040, I think, as the one of the main strategies in the economic transformation. The green development is also developing the digital transformation in order to realize of the Indonesian commitment to the sustainable development goals. I think the government has also the Smart Eco Industrial Park program, for example, and which is the concept of the regional development through the digital transformation in management of the industrial estates that encourage the creation of the green industrial area through the use of digital technology and innovation. That is including the supporting by the education institution, the university, and so on. And in this program, the industrial states are required to apply the principle of the sustainable production, including the reduction of the carbon emissions, and also implementation of the circular economy mechanisms, clean development mechanisms, as well as the what we call the world policy, such as the EU Green Deal and the implementation of green industrial policy. So I think without this regulation, I think the promotion of digital information should be taken by the other party, but again, by the role of the government, which is play the active party or active and promotion. I think the digital transformation will be successful in the near future. Thank you.
They're very important insights from the government of Indonesia. Now let me go to Mr. Nguyen and Duong. You have said that businesses and individuals, communities in Vietnam were forced to go digital because of a disrupted supply chain. Although they reluctantly go digital, now they're shifting to investing more to digital technology. So what do you think caused this change in mindset? And perhaps, do you think that in Vietnam there will be a move to see digital technology as a solution, including a solution to solve the environmental problems that communities see in Vietnam?
I thank you for the excellent question. I think basically, I think just before the COVID period, I think the firms also see the benefits of digital economy. But at the time, I think they also see some problem in trying to apply the digital technologies. on the one hand, I think they tend to think that they also need to change their domestic, their corporate governance to support the digital transformation, and that can be some sort of like some factors that affect the plan, because before 2020 everything was good, so the firms are doing well, so why change? And the second issue was then with the digital transformation, it also entails some additional costs for the firms. Of course, they do see the possible improvement in efficiency, but the firms in Vietnam tend to emphasize the issues of the cost burden as well. So they were part of the reluctance. And the third one was that before 2020, the government only had some sort of modest improvement in terms of working toward the electronic government. But from 2020, the government is moving quite fast in terms of creating a platform for sharing data, moving toward the digital government. So the firm is also seeing that the government are changing now. So they also need to make the effort to adapt to it. So I think the key. So now I think the firms are working toward the digital transformation voluntarily, and they also see the benefits of doing so. And in terms of the green technology, I think the firms also see that the digital technology can also help them in the green transition. I think for the firms in Vietnam, the green transition is important for two reasons. The first thing is they also see the importance of sustainable development. And now they have to export to a number of countries. They have to comply with various standards related to sustainable development, including eco-labeling and things like that. So with the transition to that, they also need some sort of like use in the technologies to support their decision-making process, especially with what kind of production, how is the production process is going to be managed, and if something comes up throughout the supply chain, what kind of technology can help them identify the flaws and then how to act quickly. And the digital technology is the single best solution for them to do that. And the second thing is in terms of, we are also talking about Vietnam is also part of the new generation FTA, including the comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the FTA with the EU, and both of these agreements also had provisions related to trade and sustainable development. And so for the firms exporting to CPTPP members and to the EU, adapting to complying with the sustainable development is not an option, it's a must. And so to do that, I think having an efficient production structure is important. And so with that, I think the firm is also seeing that digital solution is also crucial for them, because it's very hard for each of the personnel to keep track of the huge load of information and then trying to process them in a short time and make quick decisions. So the digital solutions can help them with that. And for example, in terms of the quality in agriculture, when people are growing the shrimp, they also need to check from time to time the quality of water, and that how to feed the shrimp efficiently from time to time. And with that kind of thing, they need not just the sensor, but they also need the cloud-based technologies in order to quickly analyze and make decisions. So with those examples, over time, the examples are building up, and so the firms start to see that this is not just in theory. We start to see good examples, and there are demonstrated benefits. Then the next thing is we need to popularize this thing, and I think that's what is exactly happening now among the firms. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a good transition to our next speaker, Mr. Tengku Farith Rithauddeen. We need to make firms interested in going into the green transition. So do you think that there's enough incentive from the market, since you have experience in the capital market? Do you think that the market already provides, say, green financing, sufficient green financing for green technology? Do you think that firms or companies in Malaysia already incorporate the need to transition to greener technology or to account for carbon neutrality as part of their risk, as part of their savings, or as part of their opportunities? And what do you think need to happen for the market to begin ticking to that direction?
I think on the supply side, in terms of new technologies that's being developed on green tech, I think is sufficient, and innovation is coming forward to overcome certain challenges, especially in light of there's a lot of environmental catastrophes that we are seeing recently, with flooding and mudslides and so on. You know, I mean, you can say that the pandemic itself is an environmental catastrophe itself. I think there is not enough incentives on the demand side for a lot of big corporations to use green technology, because it's still experimental. And governments need to create an incentive on the buy side, on the demand side, to actually use these new technologies to actually, you know, create that demand so that the innovation has a market to sell. That's critical. And if you talk about capital markets, there's a lot of private equity and VCs that are really looking for innovations, and they have invested into these technologies, these green tech technologies. But however, you will still see a lot of legacy companies using the old ways. And, you know, as you know, transportation, electricity, in industries are, you know, producing what, 80% of the pollution in the world. So if we can tackle these industries that are using this kind of fossil fuel, and to convert them into more greener, cleaner energy, then I think we can achieve a lot.
Thank you. So let me go to Mr. David Liu. The previous speakers have mentioned the strategy to promote digital transformation. We have talked about the importance of mindset, the importance of incentives. So as digitization is important, and of course, because of that, we need good infrastructure, we need skills to match the transition or the need to transition. So what can private company like Huawei do and support the government in making sure that digital transformation is inclusive? And do you perhaps or can you perhaps share examples where Huawei is actively promoting digital inclusion in a number of ASEAN countries?
Okay, thank you, Dayu. This is really a good questions, right? So Huawei, yeah. So we already to worked, yeah. So in the past years, so we already worked with our global partners, right, to make our bigger progress. One is for what you mentioned, for this ICT infrastructure, to provide the basic connectivity and access service, and also for cloud AI as well to people in these regions, right? So second is also, we work also not only just in the technical part with the local government, right? We also focus on the talent, and also for the eco system. So that in this region, in ASEAN, so Huawei since 2019, right? So we already enhanced our cooperation with the local government to cultivate digital talent through the program Huawei ASEAN Academy. So this program has already launched in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and also traveled over 88,000 ICT talents in last 2 years. And also in the next 5 years, Huawei ASEAN Academy will be expanded to more countries and to train more than 300,000 local talents. So to empower ASEAN digitalization and also for the transformation. So to build a better local ecosystem, I mean, not only for this talent, so for the 5G ecosystem, and also is very important. So Huawei, we also build up the 5G Innovation Center, in Thailand, I think in 2020. So this serves as a base for the industry, the 5G application innovation, and also is expected to have incubate hundreds of local SMEs and startups in the next 3 years. So the last I want to mention is about so the digital inclusive, right? So as we know, right, so in ASEAN is developed unbalanced, right? So in the connectivity in the rural and also the remote area, right? Even in some areas, no coverage, no power supply, right? So for example, so in Indonesia, Huawei joined hands with the local partners, primarily through the government's USO projects, to collect the uncollected, especially those living in the remote and the rural area. And Huawei's Rural Star solution, right, has collected 40 million uncollected people in rural area. And also this solution is without the power supply. We can use the solar, right, as the power supply. So, and also we also push ahead of the Palapa ring projects. So optimized to use are recently instructed by also the Mr. President Joko to boost the national connectivity for the whole population. And also in additional, Huawei mobile money solution also provides convenient mobile payment service for 150 million people who have no bank accounts. And also same for our clouds. We also cooperate with a lot of local partners, like in Singapore, right, to offer some free training online during this pandemic. So I think we have a lot of cooperation with governments, right, just to help the country not only to build very robust ICT infrastructure, we also focus on to cultivate the talents and also 5G and the ecosystem. Right? So because we also believe that everyone deserves the full rights to benefit from this digital technology and also for transformation, right? So for the education part, especially I mean in the region, right, in Asian region, we also have some digital track, so to provide more content and education service, right, to some remote areas. So we wish, with the joint efforts with the private sector like Huawei and the governments, right, together we can build a very bright future for the digital transformation for everyone and leave no one behind.
Thank you. So let me go to Dr. Mego Pinandito. It's been interesting to learn from Mr. David Liu that a lot of investments have been made by Huawei as a private company in ASEAN, including in improving its human resources, promoting local talents, for example, to match with the needs of the industry. So do you think that Silicon Valley or Shenzhen or even Chennai becoming the centers of digital and innovation can be replicated in Indonesia? And what needs to happen, do you think, before Indonesia can be the next Silicon Valley, can be the hub or the center for digital innovation?
Yes, thank you. I think I'd like to say and believe that Indonesia has potential to catch up the situation like in Shenzhen or Silicon Valley, for example, with the support of the governments and industry. I think this is also the important things, the R&D institution and also university. our institution, the National Research and Innovation Agency, has also been promoted the open platform of the several, for example, the facilities, laboratories, vessels, and also the data center that will be open and used by the industry and also the university. So I think following the success of the Silicon Valley, for example, as it has grown to become the technology center through the innovation from the graduate of the leading school and around that area, I think by transform the situation in such kind of Indonesia, for example, in the, we call the STP, the Science Techno Parks, in the future we'll be able to focus on the development of them. And the other thing is because Indonesia has, as we know, that the biodiversity in Indonesia, the demand of the management of the data and information widely, it is a big data. So how to utilize that data and take it into the what we call the commodity or the product by the industry linked with the digital transformation. I think this is the huge opportunity to become. And of course, right now, for example, many various startups in the field of the digital technology are also grown more and more. And the condition in the future in Indonesia, hopefully, can become in the green development innovation in the top ranking. And Indonesia has also the great potential in the digital world, since we know that after Gojek, you can say Gojek become the first big one in Indonesia in 2019, and next is coming in JT Express. Please allow me to say that companies to follow in this situation. And of course, in additional, there are a lot of other companies that are included in the unicorn list. For example, we know the Traveloka and Oppo and also Sandit and Ajaib. So I think this will become a leader in the green innovation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that thought, you know, we in Indonesia is home to a number of unicorns. Hopefully, also with cooperation and collaboration in Southeast Asia, there will be more unicorns, not only in Indonesia but in the region. Now, going to Mr. Tengku Farith Rithauddeen, and let me combine a question from our participant. So I would like to explore what you said previously on the need for the government to incentivize the market to create demands. What should the government do you think? Is it tax incentive, whether risk in green investment should be guaranteed partially by the government? And May Lisa from Indonesia also asked this question. So other than that, to create the demands, this green technology innovation needs to be affordable. So what needs to be done in order for this innovation or products are more affordable and therefore appealing to the consumers?
Thanks very much. A very good question. I'll address the first one. I mean, yeah, the government has provided, I mean, they give tax incentives and sometimes grants on the demand side. It's got to be more prevalent, it's got to be more aggressive, it's got to be, it's got to be a lot more wider so that a lot of people can access these grants and incentives or tax exemptions. However, we have to admit that the government has vested interest in a lot of these fossil fuel companies. These are state-owned corporations. And to be serious, the government has to privatize these companies. Because if the government's got a vested interest, they are basically, to be frank, they are the problem. Because they are increasing the fossil fuel companies, and they are having a reverse incentive against green technology. So these privatizations has to be done, and more incentives and tax exemption has to be wider and deeper for certain sectors, especially the industries, transportation. So, I mean, we do see the EV vehicle market coming in this country, and here Indonesia is very aggressive on preparing the infrastructure for electrical mobility. That's good, but if they will see medium term and long term impact on that, and we will see some impact of that. But going to the second question, whether let's make it affordable. Well, as demand goes up, when there's more demand, there will be more supply, and that's how you ensure that the price goes down. But until then, the government has to provide the incentives and the infrastructure to create that ecosystem to ensure that, and especially like in transportation, to have ensuring more electrical rechargeable bays, more companies to provide battery production and manufacturing. So these are the things that has to be prepared by the government and the society at large to ensure that the demand will come, and when demand comes, not to ensure there's frictionless supply of more innovation and companies coming into the market, and that will reduce the cost. But we still see EV vehicles still more expensive than the normal combustion engine vehicles.
Yeah, so the government needs to put up the initial investment so that demand can be generated, and perhaps consumers also need the incentive, right? Like income tax relief for people who buy electric cars. That is to make Tesla more affordable, basically.
But I just want to add. I mean, you touched a very good point about consumers, and we can't just rely on the government to be prepared for everything. So we should, as consumers, should now reduce consumption of electricity, consumption of transportation. I mean, during the pandemic, it was a good lesson. I mean, during the pandemic, we were forced to change the way we do things. And, I mean, my transportation bill, my fuel, my toll charges was reduced by 50 to 60%. And now it's gone up, which I don't like. So that we've got to change. I mean, the way we do things. And video conferencing is one way to reduce the mobility so that we can have a meeting and not move around and burn more fossil fuel.
So we need to be more conscious of our carbon footprint as well.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. In Indonesia, people are biking to work now, or they bike everywhere. So that's a good trend. I see Dr. Mego is smiling. Yeah. Perhaps he's part of the biking community. So with that, let me go to Mr. Nguyen and Duong. You said that, apart from there needs to be a change in mindset, but you also touch upon the importance of big data. Perhaps data in the future will be the new gold. It's the way for people to make money, make profits, and perhaps to attain sustainable development goals for some communities. And let me also read the question from Dr. Amara Escamara from Liberia. So what do you think are the roles of artificial intelligence or AI in big data in countries' effort to attain sustainable development goals?
Okay. Thank you. I think in terms of for the sustainable development goals, I think it's important for the people. But I think it's not. In that process, we cannot say that okay, everything related to the human have to be made by the human only. And I think in this aspect, I think first we need to be quite open-minded for the role of AI there. Certainly, there might be some discussion of the issues of ethical or the security side of the AI use, but on top of that, at the beginning, you have to leave open a room for considering the role of AI there. And if you put a question like whether we it's not if you say from the beginning that AI is far from applicability for us, then I think that's the end of the discussion and no more. I think that's on the thing is, I think we in talking about the use of technologies in these issues, I think being open-minded is important, and I think that's also relevant to the case of talking about the data flows. I think before 2019, talking about cross-border data flow is like something like an extreme among the countries. Some say it's okay, some say it's not okay. But in June of 2019, alongside the G20 meeting, I think the discussion then go to something in between. That is, we facilitate the cross-border flows of data with trust. And so I think in this, in the same approach, I think with the use of big data and AI there, I think it's for the goal there is important that we keep open-minded. And the second issue is then that we should also avoid thinking that using big data and AI are just the domestic issues. I think there is some room for international cooperation on that. And for example, in terms of addressing climate change, it's not that okay, we work for addressing climate change in one countries and the other countries in the regions are making no meaningful effort on that. So I think this is something like a global issue. Then we need a global perspective and a global approach. And I think in the ASEAN, we also had some sort of room for discussion on that. And so I think in the sphere of using the AI and big data, it's imperative that we can think of some sort of like limits to the corporations, but we do not say from the beginning that we need a border for these kind of issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Very enlightening. Let me go to Mr. David Liu. You mentioned the importance of digital infrastructure such as 5G, and we also discussed in the panel discussion, for example, electric mobility, and in promoting improvement in infrastructure, of course, cooperation is needed. Huawei cannot do it alone, governments cannot do it alone, and even countries cannot do it alone. There needs to be regional cooperation and perhaps even global cooperation. So can you share perhaps some examples of collaboration between Huawei and other entities, both public and private, and also how do you promote collaboration across Southeast Asian countries?
Okay, so thank you. So first, so we do believe the cooperation between the private sector, such as Huawei and the government, will definitely promote the local and regional digital infrastructure and also for digital transformation, right? So and also I can also to share some data, right? Even the situation in ASEAN. So today our cloud penetration, is less than 25%. The LTE, the market penetration, right, is around only 60%, and also the FBB penetration, right, is around only 35% only. So all these numbers, right, shows meanings of the family, and also more people are lack of access and care. So this problem also can be solved through innovation and also social responsibility, right? So that's why, So first, I think in ASEAN, right, still for ICT infrastructure, right, is to further enhance this investment is very important. So for ICT infrastructure is just like the road to the development of the digital economy, and also a moderately advanced construction of ICT infrastructure, is conducive, right, to the development of the digital economy, right? So for example, in Thailand, right, so we work with the operator and also government, right, to take the leadership, right, I mean, in the whole ASEAN, in the 5G deployment. And also, as I already mentioned, right, we build a 5G rather innovative rather labs and in Thailand. Yeah, and also we cooperate with rather very famous rather hospital, Srinagar Hospital in Thailand, rather to provide smart rather healthcare service to the people. But so that's why, and also we recommended to rather all the governments to provide support in terms of like spectrum allocation, spectrum price, and the policy rather to together to support rather private sectors like carriers to further invest on the ICT infrastructure, right? And also I already shared for a talent rather cultivation, right? So we through the Huawei rather Asian Academy, right? So we will continue to cultivate rather talents, and also for ecosystem, not only for 5G, and also we also set up rather open labs. Yeah, this is a solution rather incubation and also development cooperation platform for ecosystem partners. Yeah, for rather for tens of thousands of rather SME and our enterprises. Yeah, so we built this open lab in both Singapore and also Thailand, right? Provide this rather service to all rather ASEAN region. Yeah. And also for Huawei, also we launched our Spark program. Yeah. This is last year to develop the startup ecosystem by providing cloud computing, financial support, and also for talent training for tech startups in the region. So we will promote Spark program, yeah, in more of the ASEAN countries. Yeah. So, but we already launched this in like in Hong Kong, China, in Malaysia, in Thailand, and also in Singapore. So yeah. So next step, we will invest 100 million over the next 3 years to help build a startup ecosystem in the regions. Yeah. But for last but not the least, right? Still for green and sustainability. I already mentioned, right? We also set up Huawei's rather digital power rather business unit in Bangkok, right? So we wish to cooperate with all the governments and the private sectors, right, in this region to achieve rather our carbon neutrality rather targets. So we believe all the countries in ASEAN, right, we will accelerate their drive to go digital, and also private sectors like Huawei. We will look forward to deeply collaboration with our ASEAN governments, right, in their digital transformation journey. So all this good cooperation, between the private sectors and the governments will be rather win-win. So over rather 22 years of cooperation across ASEAN, so we are committed to bring a digital world to every person home, and also for our organization to build a full, collected, and intelligent ASEAN. So thanks, Dayu.
Thank you. So I believe that in order for us as a region and with Huawei support to promote technology as a solution to our issues, including issues in environment, issues in social inclusion, we need all those, right? We need cooperation, we need investment in training, we need also incubation to make sure that the startups or small and medium enterprises can thrive well under the investment climate or better investment climate. Now, let me read out the questions from our participants. I would like to thank participants who have been posting questions through our chat. I have read a number in the previous round. Let me now read a question from Nai Myo Tun from Myanmar. So the question is, how does digital economy affect digital development in least developed countries? So I would offer to any members of the panel who would like to take this question. So do you think
Ibu, can you repeat the question again, please?
So the question is, how does digital economy affect development in least developed countries? So does this bring further divide, for example, between the rich and the poor? How do you think they cope, and what do you think needs to be done to bridge the divide or minimize the divide between the rich and the poor, those with access, those without access, the skills versus unskilled? So who would like to? Yeah,
I
okay,
have
go ahead.
a very good example, Ibu. During the pandemic, we have a development center in Bangalore. It was an interesting event because during the pandemic, our development center had to be shut down because, you know, Bangalore, the development community, the developers are actually not from Bangalore itself. They are actually from outside. So when the economy shut down in India, everybody had to go back to the various villages and so on. Obviously, they can't stay in Bangalore due to the cost of living, and I think most of them are paid on weekly or daily wages. And these developers will go back. But now we've set it up in Ahmedabad in India, which is, you know, it's not as a developed state as province or city as Bangalore, but it's because Ahmedabad has captive local population that has a development committee. In that sense, if you compare, you know, we through the digital economy, you are actually transferring wealth to a less developed region from a more developed region. So it's actually increasing quality of income. Thanks.
Thank you. So yeah, I believe transfer of wealth can come through transfer of digital skills and investment. We have another question from Nina from Indonesia. Now, with the pandemic, everyone is at home and everyone is buying through e-commerce platforms. One of the disadvantages of that is that the pollution that it causes as people are shopping from their homes. You have more in Indonesia, these are sent by couriers like Gojek, or we have Shopee, for example. They have their own couriers and a number of logistical companies. So there's an increase of carbon footprint with each of that purchase. There's also the bubble wraps, the wrapping that goes with what we consume. So there's increasing pollution. Now let me address this question to Mr. Nguyen Duong, since you're drafting a plan on circular economy. So how do you think we as a society address this excess impacts of e-commerce and digital technology during the pandemic?
Thank you. I think in terms of the first thing is in terms of the carbon footprint issues. I think we have to look into the issues, frankly, into the issues of the carbon footprint. And if the government is not saying anything about it, the local authorities are not saying anything about it, then the firms will not factor in that kind of cost, and so the consumer will be underpaying for the environmental cost, and so that is not good for the society. Of course, you may say that, so at the beginning, we have to look into that one. And then the second thing is then you need to formalize that kind of cost into the purchase. And so to make it like explicit, and so there is an accounting for that, and that's the second step. And the third one is then you may say the advantage of having e-commerce platform is that it's cheaper and it's easier for people to buy, and so the cost of access, and now we increase the cost of carbon footprint in the consumers, and then they will not buy it. Then I think that's also where the government can step in, because you are not step in just to impose the cost. You may step in to provide some sort of like incentives for the consumers and for the firms that can work on these issues. And one area of that could be that, okay, you ask the e-commerce platform to promote the corporate social responsibility, and that is one thing. For example, so they should minimize or they charge some additional fee for the products that are not that are carbon intensive. And on the other hand, you may provide some incentives for the consumers. For example, for those buying products, and especially during, for example, if you buy, you can adopt it with the nighttime economy. For example, given that you're presuming that buying the product via e-commerce during the peak hour of the days may lead to more carbon emission, because then you may say, okay, if you buy the product during nighttime or off-peak hours, we may give you some incentives in the forms of like the return via credit cards, the repayment from the credit card companies, or we can provide some sort of like other kind in-kind support by other public service. So I think that gives the consumer some incentives so as to buy. Of course, they can still buy the product, but they buy it during off-peak hours, and that can help alleviate the carbon emission concern. And I think in that end, I think it's the policy there, but the role of the digital technology is important because it can give the government first the data, who buy what and when, and the second thing is you give the specify the data with respect to the person in, for example, in Jakarta or in other kind like other smaller provinces buying, so you know, so you can weigh the cost and the cost and the benefit of the government interventions. And the next one is certainly the technologies are also evolving by themselves, and so they will be in a way that can, of course, if you say okay, the cost of interventions is big for the firms, then that also leaves an incentives for the e-commerce platform to adopt more efficient or more state-of-the-art technologies to reduce the cost. And so at the end, e-commerce is still appealing, and I think it's also sustainable development friendly.
Yeah, those are simple solutions. Sourcing or buying locally may reduce those carbon emissions, and we cannot know whether there are carbon savings unless there's data available and we do some modeling, for example. So thank you. Let me go to Dr. Mego Pinandito. There's a question from Elisha Nasruddin from Malaysia. Would you think that in order for consumers to be part of the inclusive society in the intelligent, sustainable world of 2030, social innovation through community-based organizations is the answer? Or let me phrase it this way. In your experience, Dr. Mego, do you also work with community organizations in promoting government's own objectives and agenda, especially in green technology or digital economy and technology?
Yes, thank you. I think in the proposal of the government, it is also need support from almost all of the stakeholders, that is including the non-government organization and also for from the society. So what we'd like to say is, for example, the government set such kind of the policy, then they can also invite it and to get together actively in participating in our program. So regarding to the, for example, such as program, they can use the facilities of the governments, and also they're still in the discussion how to support their aim target, for example, and do together with the institutional of the government, which is fit for the purpose. And I think the other thing is we are also listen to the input from them and put it into the, for example, in the special program, for example, under this the bigger program in in government, and so that we can also get, for example, the alternative solution for the problem, for example, and also we know what they need to be supported by the government. And finally, we can also again get some final solution for this the program or the countermeasure of the problem that they faced. I think this is also including in the, for example, the environmental field, and also the other thing is in the conservation energy, and of course with the cycle life cycles assessment and so on. I think that's all, and it is very open to discuss with what the government will be support by, and also how to get more and more in the efficient and the effective way to solve the problem. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And to Mr. David Lu, we have a number of questions. Let me combine some of them. We have Hendra Manurung from Indonesia, Octavia from Singapore, and David from Indonesia. So the question is around the fact that ASEAN is part of the global value chain, and that is affected by COVID-19 pandemic. And there's also an issue of poverty, social problems in the countries that has been worsened because of the pandemic. There's also, with increasing use of digital technology, also comes security issue or crime even. So how does Huawei see this, and does Huawei provide technology solution that is safe, therefore from say crimes, that protect security of the consumers? And do you think that digital technology overall can help address some problems that is posed by COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Dayu. So yeah, I think for this pandemic, yeah, so I think impact affect, right, our people's lives, and also global the value chain, supply chain, right? So yeah, but as Huawei, yeah, so I think first, yeah, so just because the pandemic, right, we are thinking about how can we use, right, our ICT technology, right, to enhance the people's communication, to let people to enjoy more entertainment, right, to balance their fields, their lives, and their works, right. So I think first, right, so even during this pandemic, right, so we still to work together with our customers, right, to ensure and also provide very stable broadband, right, to our customers. I mean, in the ASEAN, right? So I think more than half of the families, and also 500 million other people. I think this our responsibility is also our commitment. Yeah. So, and also ICT the technology like cloud and AI, but also will change the people's life, their ways of working, right? So I think a lot today people are used to work at home, right? So, and also from surfing, and also start to enjoy, and this also in some degree this also help, right? I think what mentioned when I think from Indonesia he mentioned, right, for the pollution, right, we can help to reduce the transportation. Right? So I mean, for this, from this perspective, ICT infrastructure, not only to help to the people to enjoy their work and also life, and also help to protect our earth. So about the upstream, and also with the new era of metaverse, right? So we know all the global talent to enhance their investment, and also the cybersecurity become, and also for the privacy protection, right, become more and more important. So for the cybersecurity, I mean, affects all of us, and also, but this shouldn't be politicized, right? So, and all this trust or distrust, yeah, should be based on verifiable facts and also some unified standards, right? So, for Huawei, we are very open, right? We opened a cybersecurity transparency center in Brussels in 2019. So we work with our other partners and customers, and also other critical stakeholders. But through this facility to discuss and develop unified security standards and verifications mechanisms, right? So I mean, through this unified standard, right? So I mean, people can be safely to enjoy, right, this digital technology, and also to bring a lot of benefit to us. But this need, we not only for the Huawei, right? We work together with the other organization like GSMA and also like the governments, right? Let's work together to build a health and also safe digital environments. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I believe that in order for technology to work, we all need to do our part. And with that, let me invite each member of our panelists to say a few words to close as a concluding remark. So what do you think needs to happen to integrate green economy and digital transition in Southeast Asia? And what does it mean to us as individuals, communities, and for businesses? Let me first start with Dr. Mego Pinandito.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I think the changes of the digital transformation that is including the pandemic COVID is run very fast. And I think we have to try to adapt quickly. And so thinking about the future, it will be together in the global and find what we call the finest way to become new paradigms, the new world in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we would like to invite Mr. Tengku Farith Rithauddeen for your concluding remark.
Thank you very much. Well, I think, what we've learned from the pandemic is that when the economy stops, we have clearer skies, bluer oceans, and the air is much more fresher. But there's a cost to it. I mean, like jobs, obviously lives lost due to the pandemic. But what does it tell you? It really tells you that basically something's got to give. I mean, we can't go on like this where we are basically overproducing, and the impact is basically the environment that we are seeing today. And, we're still not out from this pandemic, and who knows, 1 or 2 years later, there may be a new pandemic, and it can be a lot worse. But it has really forced a lot of organizations to adopt digital transformation. We've got a client up in the East Coast in Malaysia where, if there wasn't a pandemic, they will still be using an old 15-year-old accounting system that couldn't be used because they couldn't go to the office, and they had to change to cloud computing and allow their finance team to actually assess their work from remotely from home. But these are the things that for certain things. But we've become an organization of, we've become a society of wants, and this overabundance and greed that become put us to, we're not a society of needs, but we're a society of wants. And when the wants will become too much, somebody who needs something will not have it. And so we need to have green technology inside. We need to have fresher airs. We need to have oceans that are more bluer and skies that are clear. It's really for our future generation. And digital transformation is one step for you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nguyen and Duong, your concluding remark?
Thank you. I think first, in terms of digital technology, I think it's important to note that we need the capacity for it, and we also need the help of the partnership between the government and the private companies, and also the international cooperations to support this process. And luckily, the studies and dialogues so far have indicated that the developing countries are not necessarily the latecomers in the digital transformation process. So that is some that gives some hope for developing countries, including those in the Southeast Asia, to be hopeful for the future of digital transformations. That's one thing. And the second point to note here is that we should not aim just for digital development. Digital transformation had to contribute to the overall sustainable development. And with that purpose, digital technology have to also work for the promoting sustainable development in the regions. I mean, in the regions, and not just each and every single countries of Southeast Asia. And so in that process, sustainable development can entail some additional costs, but by complying with the sustainable development standards, you need the help in digital technologies, and with that you can also improve your competitiveness. You can also have your product enter into a higher price segments, so that can overcompensate for the cost you incurred in the production process. So I think this kind of process is enabling, and the firms and the people will still benefit from it, rather than just saying we need a trade-off between sustainable development and economic benefits. No, there is a roadmap that can work for both sustainable development and improvement of well-being, and in that process, digital technology has an important role. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let me go to Mr. David Liu for your concluding remark.
Yeah, so I think as everyone knows, rather digital infrastructure, is the foundation of rather digital economy and also for digital transformation. So that's why we suggest that ASEAN, we should increase rather our investment in this the foundation of ICT infrastructure, and also we recommend that the government, we should provide more support in terms of rather like a spectrum allocation, and also for spectrum rather price, and also for the policy to support this rather digital rather ecosystems. And also the second, all of us, we live in one earth, so we need a green and sustainable rather development. So and also the last digital development, we think should be rather inclusive, benefits rather human rather our human well-being, and especially the people who are in developing country, and also in some remote or rural area is lacking rather care and also access to this digital world. But to solve all these rather problem or challenges, need innovation and cooperation between the private sectors, like Huawei, and also governments and NGOs. So so we think, so for the innovation never ends. It's not just about the today. More, I think, it's about the lighting up the future our digital green the future in the ASEAN. So we are looking forward to work together, right, to with all the related organizations to unlock this the new the green value with the digital innovation.
Thank you. Of course, integrating green economy and digital transition in Southeast Asia is an ambitious objective. As we have discussed in our panel discussion and also from the response to the questions from our participants, it takes a good set of infrastructure, good set of enabling policies, perhaps transition to skills that matches the needs of a more digitized economy. We need also market incentives, not only to the firms or the producers, but also to the consumers to change the behavior. We need a conducive ecosystem. We need data to also not only to predict behavior, but also to enable individuals, businesses, and communities and governments to make choices that can reduce carbon emission reduction. And most importantly, we need to have a change or a shift in mindset. And this is where education plays a part and our individual actions also matter. And I believe that the underlying message here, as Mr. David Liu has mentioned, is the need for us to collaborate, to work together. And this can only be done through a conscious and deliberate effort. And with that, we hope that technology will then play an important role for Southeast Asian economies to be more sustainable and more inclusive. And with that, please join me in thanking our wonderful panelists today, Dr. Mego Pinandito, Mr. Tengku Farith Rithauddeen, Mr. Nguyen Duong, and Mr. David Liu. Thank you for your wonderful insights, experience, opinions, and views. I believe that we benefit so much. Thank you. We benefit so much from the wonderful representation of the private sector. We have a techpreneur among us. We have a representation from the government and from a think tank. So again, join me in thanking all of our panelists. And I would like to thank all the participants for staying with us and for joining us and for your wonderful questions. I apologize that I was not able to read out all of your interesting questions, but hopefully there will be another set of discussions where some of the issues can be raised and discussed. And with that, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you, Huawei and FPCI, for organizing discussion. And let me return to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you.